Now we are live. Good morning, Joey. How you doing?
Doing well, sir. Yourself?
Should be doing good. Real good. Real good. I told you we're gonna already have people popping online this morning for this one. So I feel pretty privileged. I find out this is the only podcast that you've ever done so far. So this is something new, and I know how much you love being on camera and being the center of attention. So
yeah, it's my favorite thing.
Yes. So before we get started, I think I'll introduce you. This is Joe Bouchard, and I'm going to go ahead and let them. We all call him Chappy, and we'll let you know why that is here soon. That's his, that's his nickname. That's how we were introduced to him. They'll be camp. Oh, Ashley Sage, check it out. She's already on here. Party. Hey, Ashley had the opportunity to come and train with you, bro. She didn't want to do it.
I mean, it's okay to be scared.
Yeah, last time I was coming out, I told her she can come. She didn't do it. So there's that. We'll see what kind of smart aleck comment she comes up with after that. So anyway, with no further ado, Joe's, I'm going to have you take it away. Let's go ahead and introduce yourself, what you did in our service to our country. We appreciate the patriot that you are. You went to war for us so that we have this freedom of blanket. Doesn't go unnoticed by me, that's for sure. I know that sometimes it does by others, but not by me. So I do really appreciate your service to our country. Why don't you go ahead and give everybody... Oh, check it, dude. John Vaverka's on from the hospital listening to you.
I'm glad.
All right.
Glad to hear he's actually up and moving again.
Yep.
Won't be long before I can start making fun of him.
And that's right. Well, you can start making fun of him now, dude. There's no reason. We've been making fun of him since he was a mummified Adian. Oh, look at John. Look what he tells you. American badass. So you're more than welcome to go ahead and start making fun of him. It's already ready to go. So with that's all we did over the weekend anyway when we were doing testing. So all right. So, Joe, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know your service, what your rank was. Now that you've retired here just recently, how you ranked, what you did in the service. And, look at my cute husband. You see, I told you how popular you're going to be, Joe.
Yeah.
So, all right. Go ahead, Joe. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and what you've done in the military force.
All right. So my name's Joe Bouchard. I joined the military in November 7th of 2000. I went to the Army with an Option 40 contract, which is the contract for the Ranger Indoctrination Program back then, or now it's called the Ranger Assessment Selection Program, which allows you the opportunity to go to the Ranger Regiment on the Special Operations side. So I went through basic airborne school. Got picked up from airborne school. The coolest thing about that one is we were all standing in a formation off to the side. They picked us up. They showed up in a truck. They didn't really pick anything up, and they started yelling at us out the window about how we're worthless and a whole bunch of very colorful words as we grabbed our gear and made the roughly mile run up to the Ranger Indoctrination regimental headquarters to go get smoked. But I made it through that. And then in June, I believe it was June of 2001 is when I got to go ahead and step foot over on Hunter Army Airfield and serve with 1st Ranger Battalion. Stayed with them for 8 years. Left there, went up to West Point for a while. Was an instructor up there for 5 years. And then just kind of moseyed along back down the southeast till I got to 3rd Infantry Division, and then I ended up retiring on the 25th Thanksgiving Day. So I have a lot to be thankful for there. after 21 years of service. But my main specialties were explosives. I was a master explosive breacher for the Ranger Regiment, and infantryman within the Rangers. And then I eventually got med boarded, and they put me in the chaplain's corps. That's how I finished my career out. After 12 years, I was moved from being 11 Bravo to a 56 Mike.
Yeah. So let's talk about just on one of the things there. When we have some people here that will understand what that is, why don't you tell you when you talk about being in the Rangers, and as far as Army goes, that's probably one of the higher special operations divisions. Is that correct?
Yes. So when you start looking at special operations, special forces, and all the different little nuances that are out there, we all talk crap about each other nonstop. But at the end of the day, we each have our own little nuances to what we do well. Personality wise, and I mean, you could attest to this one, sir, is I wanted to burn the world to the ground. And the Ranger Regiment was definitely the option for that. That was a airfield seizure direct action raid organization, and that's what they specialized in. And it definitely showed through the last 2 decades of war.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about that. Where did you serve overseas, and how long were you away from family when deployed?
So let's see, with the Rangers, was it 4 or 5? I can't remember. It's either 4 or 5 times each to Iraq and Afghanistan. And the deployments are short. I mean, for us, fortunately, there were 90 deployments, and we'd come back, and then we'd have somewhere between 90 to 180 days to do the entire year's worth of training before we go ahead and get back on the bird, go back overseas, and end up in one of those 2 locations. Since at the time that was our 2 different fronts that we had for the war, was Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. But personally, I enjoyed Iraq way more. It was a lot more fun. There was no mountains, so I'm not a big fan of humping up the side of a mountain and freezing. So.
Yeah, I understand. I can understand that. That's good. So, well, I think for those that aren't military or civilian, and I think even the ones that are military, they've always been impressed with your record. I've got to personally train with you, and I've got to train you. So people ask quite a bit how our relationship forged, and I think it was forged because we. Paverka. He says more bang bang and boom booms. So, you guys have chewed the same dirt, so you know exactly what he's talking about. So when how I met you, just and became a viable part of what AKMF is, especially in the defensive tactics, is I got to meet you on base, and we got hired to come in and do this. Was our first one with the chaplains too? It wasn't, right?
First one with 160th SOAR, which is the Special Operations Aviation Regiment. They hired you guys to come on, and that's when I first met Ben Jackson. So Ben at the time was the combatives instructor for 160th, and he put out a flyer that came down to the unit I was working with. And I believe they called it Combat Pistol Krav Maga or something along those lines. And It sounded pretty interesting. So I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot, and fell in love with it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. So here's the story, guys, if you're online with me and Joe. So when we first went there, and, they usually hire us in, and I, my specialty was always kind of gun and, gun retention and gun takeaways and stuff like that. That's kind of my thing, and just kind of an overall intense energy. But I remember vividly when we were on base and we're getting ready, and I remember telling myself, I'm like, wow, I have some law enforcement experience, but I'm definitely not one of these boys. You know what I mean? And so that kind of weighed on me. I'm like, how am I going to get these guys to believe that I have something viable to give them when I haven't chewed the same dirt as they have. You know what I mean? You know how it is, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you've been around the block, dude. You've been on these civilians, how they've hired some civilians and some just kind of suck, right? and so I was concerned about this for sure, and so we go in. And I remember watching you out of the gate, right? You caught my eye. Of course, there was a couple of you, right? I think there was, there was a few of you that was just on edge, warriors, badasses, right? And you stuck out. And I remember I talked to you a little bit, stuff like that. But I'm like, you know how you can kind of see how the cream rises to the top and kind of who the top dogs are in the class and stuff like that. You evaluate that and you go after the alpha, right? And so I'm like, well, I said, this guy's definitely, I said, if I can make a believer out of him, which was you, I said, I feel that I should be able to make a believer out of most, right?
Absolutely.
So I chose you because I know back then I was a lot heavier too. I wasn't quite in the same shape I am now. You know what I mean? I was heavier back then. And I know the first thing, I know this to be a fact. When people first see me, there is no way that this guy can maneuver or do things, right? You know what I mean? I already know this. I know this going in. So I had two things to overcome, right? The fact that I didn't serve in the military, I was only in law enforcement, and then I have this other obstacle because they're going to feel that I'm not in shape. So I picked you. And I said, because people couldn't, I said, people aren't punching very good. And then I think I laid one of those punches into you, and one of my punches, and it, I could tell in your face, like, wait a minute.
Well, yeah. When I first saw you, sir, I mean, you were a big, old, gray-haired dude, and I was like, really, what the hell can he bring to the table? And I held that tombstone pad for you. I swear to God, my heart stopped. That's the hardest I've ever been hit in my life.
So I remember that, and I was like, and I felt, and I think that's where you know how it is, right? That's where our relationship was forged on that one particular thing. Because I think after that, once you get the alphas to kind of believe in what you're doing, it was easier for me to transfer knowledge from there, and then we just became what we became. And I don't think there was another class that you weren't at, as a matter of fact.
I tried to make it to every last one.
Yeah, so I mean, that's how you and I were brought together, and so it's been, it was a pleasure watching, and training those guys. And I think I had these conversations with you. I'm like, Joe, I mean, I said, I didn't serve in the military, but and I asked a lot of advice from you guys that been out in the field. Is this viable? Do you feel this is what we need? And so you've been a very pivotal point in helping us train military. And I want to personally thank you openly for that, because people really don't know the relationship we have. Because after in the Corps, here's the other thing, as we go into the different directions that, you were in there, and then there's a chaplain's corps, and that's where you kind of redirected. I mean, people may not know that you're a man of faith and man of God, and you directed yourself into the chaplains. I want to talk about what this is, what that particular corps is in the military, and about what chaplains can do and what chaplains' assistants are. I think that's a good thing to have a quick talk about, so people understand what's in the battlefield and what a chaplain is and is not allowed to do.
Yeah,
and they take it real serious, by the way.
Yeah, unfortunately, chaplains are not allowed to carry in any way, shape, or form. And it's really, to me, a disservice for them. I mean, they should at least have a pistol on them for self-preservation purposes. But Chaplain's Corps itself, as a whole, it's really the last line of defense for the military from a secular standpoint. The U.S. government as a whole has been pushing a very secular approach in the military, trying to take God out of a lot of things. And it's literally the most valuable thing that we have in the military itself is the understanding of your faith, God, how God plays the bigger picture in what you do. And, for me, the Chaplain's Corps, it has a very special place in my heart because I had two chaplains early on when I was still in the Rangers on the 11 series side. And, it was Chaplain Dave Bolus, who eventually went off to some very unique units to serve. And the more specialized the organization is, the more alpha driven, the harder it is, I think it is, to serve as a man of God. And he really planted a lot of seeds that I'm not even sure he really got to understand how they were going to grow until years later. And then in 2006, we had a major firefight in Afghanistan. And on that target there, me and my machine gunner were kind of left out in the middle of the open. We had a horrible platoon sergeant there at the time who, instead of allowing the squad leaders and the individuals that should have been in control of their elements to control, he pulled individuals back, left me and my machine gunner out in the open with a whole lot of gunfire going on. So after that night, we had a helicopter that was shot down. It was one of the largest firefights that we had in Afghanistan. It was the most CAS or close air support that was up until that point that was ever fired in combat. And that night I got to sit down and talk with Chaplain Mark Winton, and that's when I got saved. So I got saved under him. And then later on, a few years later, that's when I started figuring out the salvation as a whole. When you first get saved, you hear about all these new age Christians that do this 180. The 180 is not me. I can't go from being what I was to being something else overnight. So I kind of view all that stuff being like a battleship. And it takes miles and miles and miles for a battleship to turn around. I'm hoping I'm somewhere near the apex at this point in my life, but I may still not be there yet. But
Chap, I think we're all a work in progress, especially
yes,
men
sir.
like us, for sure.
Yes, sir.
So,
but yeah, so that to me, with everything that we did in the Ranger Regiment, that I'm sure we'll talk some about later, that was a big turning point for me and gave me a whole new respect for the Chaplain's Corps itself. But with the chaplain assistant, which is now religious affairs specialist, they are supposed to be the ones that kind of fill the gap on the administrative side as well as the tactical side for the chaplains. And some of them do a really good job of it. Some of them take it as this is an easy job. And old chaplains are nice guys and they only push but so far. So you have some that really excel and come to the top. You have some that are, they steal oxygen, to say the least. But that's what the role of religious affairs specialist is supposed to be, is to help fill that tactical and administrative gap, to allow the chaplain itself to focus on the ministry pieces that the military needs the most, especially when you start looking at the stressors that come from combat.
Right. So and so that's where our relationship got to forge anyway, because then they get a man like you that is battle tested and that comes into this Corps, and you saw a weakness in leadership and in as far as self-defense goes for thing. I don't know, just me personally. I remember when we first did it, and I was thinking to myself, wow, chaplain's assistants, that means you are the one protecting God's warrior. You know what I mean? It just felt like a bigger responsibility than what most of them took it as. As a matter of fact, every time we did a course, I'm like, man, the chaplains are tougher than any of the chaplain's assistants. Okay. I was like, you remember we had this conversation. I'm like, what is the deal, man? I mean, in battle, it would be switched. These chaplains would be protecting these guys that they're supposed to be protecting. And I know it. I could just feel it. How seriously they took training and everything else. So that was quite eye-opening, to say the least. You know what I mean? And so
a lot of it's the Army's fault. It's in how they sell the organization. You sell the infantry, you sell the Ranger Regiment, as you want to go jump into combat, burn the world to the ground, and come back with a whole bunch of cool guy war stories. Well, that's an easy sell. The Chaplain's Corps, sadly enough, is brief the exact opposite. Most of your recruiters be like, hey, if you just want kind of an administrative, easier job, well, this is a good fit for you over here.
Yeah.
So it's just sold poorly.
Right. But unfortunately, they still go to war. You know what I mean?
Very true.
So, you talk on one side, but you're still doing war shit on the other side. I don't know. It was great. I mean, I'm glad that we got to be able to listen, because of you and doing this kind of stuff. I mean, we found some holes in the game, even on some of our weapon training. Right. I mean, I was like, wow, we remember that. I mean, you remember that one time, right? I was like, man, we have to evaluate here. What's up? You know what I mean?
Yes,
and,
sir.
We changed some stuff because of you having us in there and trying to, protect people that are going to war. So, I do thank you for that. So the Ranger Regiment, we're going to talk about a little bit, because I think that, how it is, right? Well, back in the day, I guess my old man gray-haired days is, I'm so going to smoke you when I come out there, bro. Okay. You and I we're going to have a little bit of a go now, dude. Last time, you may have had a little bit upper hand. This time it's going to be a little different. Okay. We're, you see the big green berets and the whole 9 yards from the, John Wayne days and what that looks like. Why don't you walk us through, man? Why don't you give us some pivotal moments in both your career or moments that you've made some decisions? Because I'm not sure people really understand a man like yourself on how much you were away from your family, right, on deployments and what you missed. And having a wife there, I'm sure, she's still right there by your side, but I'm sure there's still moments in marriage and military are a rough life, I would imagine. So why don't you talk about back in your Ranger regiments and some of these key points for yourself? Let's double down that road real quick.
Well, I think if I look back, there's probably two individuals that really shaped me overall long term, as far as in the Ranger Regiment itself, and then just as a leader, period. The first one would have been now Master Sergeant retired, but back then he was a Sergeant First Class, Van Cleve, and I was very fortunate. We still stay in contact now, but he was one of the ones that early on in training, where you're young, you're full of hate, piss, and vinegar, and just fueled by that caffeine, whiskey, and hate. He kind of just helped shape it, give it direction. What a leader's supposed to do: provide purpose, direction, and motivation. He did those things for me and started really talking to me a bunch. And kind of like our relationship early on. He was kind of the same way for me, essentially like a father figure within the Ranger Regiment. His position itself was a platoon sergeant. But when we first started going overseas, he was there, Afghanistan and in Iraq, and early on in both facets of the war, especially Afghanistan, we started seeing individuals when we go down the roads. You watch, females with their faces just almost melted off. You see just young girls getting beat, and how they just treated men and women and children as second-class citizens. And then you start going on target. And the first time that I had ever walked into a room, we were doing room clearing, and I saw some dude just raping a little boy, and I found out back then that everyone claims it's the culture, but anyways, in that area of the world, little boys are viewed for pleasure and women are viewed for reproduction. And the shock and kind of like horror, I guess, at the end of the day, because it's just not how I was raised. And you're supposed to protect women and children at all costs, not rape them. So I started getting really angry on target. And Van Cleve kind of, instead of me just being kind of a wild man on target, he really helped focus it. He made sure that I was the lead guy on a lot of the doors. And then, just always told me, when you go in there, that's your opportunity to be a madman. As soon as you go ahead and the target itself is secure, you have to come back to normal. You have to be able to flick that switch on and off. Take all that hate and rage that you have and then just really channel it in the right areas. And, he gave me that opportunity because that was one of the nice things with the Ranger Regiment. Unlike a lot of the conventional guys that would get stuck over there for 12 months and have just an immense amount of downtime in between. When we went over there, they utilized us to our maximum capability, and every night we were on target unless there was some type of like brownout type storm. But we were on target nonstop. So I always had the ability to come back, kind of recoup, go hit the weight room, and then go straight back out there and, get to be me and, unleash the hate on target. And it was a great experience, but it starts to wear at you for a while because, you hear a lot of people talk about sheepdogs and, the role of the military and law enforcement as sheepdogs, and that's not the role of the Ranger Regiment. When you have wolves, sometimes it takes wolves to go out and hunt, and that was kind of the thing I really noticed. And that's one of the things Van Cleve explained to me, is that we are not like the others, and you need to understand that. You need to understand how to hone that, and then when you're on target, you need to understand how to release that. The other thing Van Cleve really taught me a lot, and I mean, it holds true now, is that man probably had more injuries than anybody I've met, even me at this point. And that man rangered on from objective to objective with bad ankles, back, neck. If you could think of it, it was completely blown out. And no matter how bad it hurts, the thing he explained to me was, on target, doesn't matter if you're missing a limb, if you're shot, if you're wounded, if you smash your face in, whatever it might be, you are never a liability. And if you're ever going to be a liability, you need to go ahead and hang it up at that moment. And it just gives you that drive at the end of the day that, failure is never an option. Failure happens, but it's not an option. And, he was kind of the first one to shape all of that, early on, especially with the room clearance stuff. I still miss that. That's the biggest high I've ever had in my life, was not knowing what's on the other side of the door, and to be able to go ahead and pass through that, and then just see what you had with the cards dealt, and then show them what hell and fury looked like. But as I progressed with rank, eventually made it to E5, E6, and when I got E6 is when I probably had the biggest experience learning wise as a squad leader. It was my first live fire exercise that I had ever done. At the time, we had a first sergeant who unfortunately just passed away this past week. His name was First Sergeant Charles Saronero. Everyone calls him Sal. Eventually, he retired as a command sergeant major and passed away last week on us from lung cancer. But he, without a doubt, I think taught me the greatest leadership lesson out there, that success itself is not yours, but in those who you lead. If you provide the purpose, direction, motivation, and resources to your Rangers, they'll succeed at anything, because failure is never an option. And you will succeed because of their successes, not of your own. It's really about how you develop those that are below you. But failure as a whole solely, at the end of the day, solely is yours as a leader. So where I learned all this was, I had two brand new team leaders at the time. One is named Josh Kilgore. He went off to do some phenomenal things as far as elevating himself to a particular tier within the military. From what I understand, he's still doing great things over there. And then I had another individual named Wade Wassenberg, who unfortunately passed away from a tumor years ago in the brain. And these two individuals, I was, as a squad leader, when you go hit a target for a live fire exercise and you're taking down the objective, you have two teams that are going down that are shaping some type of L-shaped ambush, getting backside security. And one element is moving up to the breach point itself. So I was with the machine gun team up on the hill. And before I had called off anything at all, I looked down in the valley, or the little draw that we had, and there was Josh Kilgore with his entire fire team low crawling towards the objective in the middle of the open that we were just shooting over. And then I look off to the other side, and there's Wade Wassenberg and his entire fire team running down the hillside, not at all to plan. And I was losing my shit. Because I mean, I'm being evaluated on this one, and here these guys are doing nothing that we're supposed to. Well, we ended up calling a ceasefire on that. The guys went through and they finished it clear, and then I got pulled off to the side by Charles Serenero and first sergeant and stuff at the time, and he just asked me, "What the hell is going on here?" And the first thing I did, which is a horrible thing to do, was go ahead and be like, "Well, Kilgore did this and Wassenberg did this," and he just stopped me right there. And he's like, "No,
Right.
They didn't do anything. You failed." And that's when he really started talking about how, as a leader, your successes ride on them 100%. If you're successful, it's because those individuals are successful. It's because you provided the purpose, direction, motivation, and resources for them to go ahead and accomplish those tasks. But if they fall short at all, somewhere in there, whether it's your planning, your communication, your direction, motivation, you lack the resources as a leader, you have to own that as a man and as a leader, and that you can never be a liability to them. And then you have to be able to go back and take that learning moment right there, that failure that you had, and dissect it and not be nice about it. It can't be, well, Kilgore did this or Wassenberg did this. It is, how did I fail them? And every which facet I could possibly go ahead and dissect that. And I know for Carson right now, if he's here listening, he probably hates that about me when it comes down to Pula Karate as an organization, because we can have the best event ever. And I literally will come back and be like, all right, we do some great things. That's fine. Let's go back, look at the failures. All I care about are the failures. How do I go ahead and dissect failures? So, that was a big learning opportunity, learning moment for me from, Sergeant Major Sal, was, that leadership piece, how important that is, and really understanding that your successes are not yours. They're built off of your subordinates. Yeah,
it's super. What a super segment that you just did right there. Because any of you higher end military guys that I know of, I've heard the same. It's so hard because you guys get to learn real life lessons in a war, right? Or in scenarios of where life and death is put on the line on your leadership, right?
Yes, sir.
And isn't it funny how it's so easy to transfer, right?
It's very easy to transfer
elsewhere
blame
instead of take ownership, right? And listen, even in the career that I do here, and it wasn't until I learned how to have some ownership myself, and and sometimes I'm not even my leadership skills are, I'm always looking to better my leadership skills anyway on what that looks like. But it drives me crazy when, whether it's school owners or whatever, when you have experience on your side and you say, look at, man, these are areas that need to be addressed. And, people aren't allowing me to express my views, or they can't, it's always somebody else. It's never a look in the mirror and an evaluation of self. Right. And
Yes, sir.
it right. And I don't know about listening to your what you've learned in battle from leadership. Most military guys, that this is what I get mostly from you guys, is you guys have put it out there on the line, and there is no gray area when your men are being fired upon, and it's your leadership is going to get them through, and how you project your leadership onto them so that they can project down rank, right? And so I don't know, that was really an awesome listening to you talk about that, and just it explains a lot about your leadership, and having somebody like yourself that's going to evaluate a situation and say, I think I come to you quite often after those. I say, what do you think was good? What do you think was bad? I mean, we've had these conversations quite often, because every time I do something, how do we make this better, or how do we approach this particular thing so that we can, evaluate, what I'm
Yes, sir.
saying? So I just, I think I don't know. I think that's another time for us, Chappy, where we speak just on leadership. I think it would be good probably to get, I'd like to have yourself, Vaverka, we have another one, Rod, another one of our guys, and just talk about leadership. We all get together on one podcast, and we speak on leadership and what was learned in leadership. I think you guys have valuable lessons that come to the table. Whether people want to listen to them or not, that's on them. You know what I mean? If you're going to be a leader in anything, like if you're going to own a martial arts school and you've got guys and peers above you, and you're not going to listen to what they have to say when they've done due diligence, then that's on you. There's just nothing that's going to come about. So, and so taking, I've got to, and you're super, you're super organized dude, right? So when we work together, I'm kind of the visionary guy. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and
sir.
I'm kind of the guy that likes to be in the trenches doing the training parts, right? Doing the, hey, are you doing this right? Are you teaching this properly? Are you able to communicate this to this group and to get them to do it? So, so I see now why you feed off just a short talk. I mean, why you always feed off me when I come out there, okay, what, because you're always asking me, dude, you're the one of the only ones that do come to me and say, hey, what kind of evaluation, what do you think on this? And I don't know, you take it on the chin quite often, and say that, when I give you feedback, you take it for what it is, and I appreciate that. I think that just shows just the leadership skills that you have. So,
Well, sir, I really do wish I was taking it on the chin, but every time you come out, it seems like I take it to the nuts.
That's well, you know why I do that. I want to test to see how mad I can get you, because it's so funny to get you so angry, and you're so angry, and then you can't do anything with your anger. That's the funny part of it. That's what gets me going the most, And Fortner puts out there true. Listen, the time I hit you with the stick, that was an accident, and it's not my fault. You don't wear a cup.
That was a metal cane, sir.
But did you wear a cup to class?
I did not.
Okay. So we have to take extreme ownership and find out where the breakdown in that happened. And that wasn't because I had lack of control. It's because you had lack of equipment.
Yes, sir.
So there. And and that's pinpoint accuracy for me to hit you in the groin with that small stick.
Aim small, okay. Miss small.
That's right. That's correct. That's good. Yeah, your leadership, dude, is off the chain, man. It's a blessing to have you part of what we are. I've been enjoying that. You guys that don't know, I've watched. So I'll give you some stories of Chappy that's so funny. So we do an active shooter. And, having him be the active shooter really sucks, okay? Because he's not like your average active shooter, like, they're shooting up the mall. They don't know what they're doing. He's the one that can come in the room and kill everybody in the room. And we are doing active shooter drills. And so we've done active shooter, and we've got the scenario, and here comes Chappy, the active shooter. And just so you guys know, I watched him people trying to get him down, go for the legs and stuff. He flies through the air while he's taking his magazine one out and putting the other one in midair and then shooting the ones that are coming after him. I told him, I said, I'm not using you for active shooter anymore. Okay. It's like an unfair advantage. All right. It's like, it's like, to have him defend against Batman. You know what I mean? So, those have just been some funny times on what it is. And I don't know, that's the other thing. I mean, your shooting is off the chart. That's another facet of you in your military training, I guess, is your firearms. I mean, that's something that you guys have out there in Pooler also, that you have a firearms division now that you're out getting to be able to use your training for civilians to keep them safe, number one, and keeping them safe first, and then how to properly use a firearm. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure that you've seen, I'm sure that we agree, guys that enjoy firearms and carry and know that everybody should not carry a firearm. Correct?
Absolutely, sir. Yeah. I mean, if you don't train with a firearm consistently, and work from the draw and understanding that, it's only dangerous for the muzzle. And at the end of the day, that carrying a pistol does not mean that you're going to be equal to your opponent in any way, shape, or form, because it's a projectile weapon. And if you are not at projectile range, it is an absolutely useless piece of equipment.
Yes, I agree. That's a whole nother podcast that we can speak about when it comes to firearms, because I think everybody just thinks, right-wing nutbags that want firearms. That's just not the case. You know what I mean? That's just not the case, and it's such misinformation on what we can speak about on that. It's just you're full of information as far as leadership goes, dude. I thoroughly enjoy all that. I think with your guys' military experience, it puts you into a real world. And I mean, what gravitated you towards Krav, dude? What made you decide, hey, because I remember the conversation you said, hey, I'm going to be a black belt in this one day. So, what made that change and turn for you?
So early on in the Rangers, obviously, I was 10 feet tall, bulletproof. That's why I joined there. I was told early on with the recruiter, they showed me a cool guy video, guys jumping out of planes, blowing stuff up, and literally trying to burn the world to the ground. And I was like, that is exactly what I want to be. Well, when you start getting overseas and going from room to room to room, and every once in a while you get somebody who really does want to fight back. And they wrap you up and you don't have answers. Violence is always the answer when in doubt, but sometimes technique really makes a big difference for you in understanding how to bridge that gap. So back then, the Modern Army Combatives Program, I was not a big fan of, at least in how it was taught, which I don't believe was ever the intent of the founder of the program, which was Matt Larson. And if you follow Combatives Association or things like that, you'll see Matt Larson on there a lot. Very, very smart individual, very tactically sound. But the way the program was delivered to me wasn't by somebody of his caliber. The program was delivered to me by somebody who did the bare minimum to get by and check the block and thought he was a MMA badass. So we're sitting there doing arm bars on the ground in full kit. And I'm like, this is stupid. Why would I ever do an arm bar on the ground? This just makes no sense at all. And I just, from that point forward, I was like, jiu-jitsu has no place in the combatives world. That's how I truly felt. And it wasn't until years later, because I took a course called Vanguard up in Chicago. That was a phenomenal course. It really started to go ahead and show some weapons disarm techniques and just weapons retention was their main focus. And that was a good course for me to go to, but there was still a lot of gaps that we had. And then I took Krav for the first time, and Krav started filling in a lot of gaps for me. I'm like, this makes way too much sense. Like something as simple as always being taught growing up, fight fair. I think that's a good basic principle that I think most parents want, is to always, be fair in what you do. But there's nothing about being fair and fighting. And when you started talking about cracking people in the nuts, that was a game changer. I'm like, why did I wait so long? And then Ben Jackson did a course called SOCP, which is Special Operations Combatives Program, and he's the one that introduced me to that, and that bridged the gaps that I thought were within Krav with the jiu-jitsu side, but I still didn't fully understand the really how it all played together yet, until Ben got me set up with Greg Thompson. And Greg Thompson, I believe he's one of the first black belts on the East Coast. But he does a lot within the special operations community, and he is the founder of SOCP. So I was very, very fortunate to be able to go up there and spend 2 weeks working with Greg. And by the end of 2 weeks, I finally had the epiphany that jiu-jitsu has a very significant place within combat. And his role wasn't teaching us anything at all about the striking. He taught us so much on framing, the retention of our weapon, and movement, and understanding movement of the body, breaking down the body. So when you're sitting there in full kit, how does all that start to affect you and really play to the bigger picture of the end state outcome? Because we're trying to get back to our tools, our firearms, for work. And then after that course, I came back and I took your back-to-back level 1, level 2 Krav course. And that's when it finally all clicked. I saw both sides from the aspects of jiu-jitsu, what jiu-jitsu really had to offer from a stand-up point, with just understanding the body, how the body works, moves, and how that affects me within combat. And then the violence aspect, which is probably really what drove me the most to Krav, and my love for it is I get to be me in this art. Unlike any other art that's out there where there's a lot of formality to it, this is right up my alley. I mean, we get to remove a lot of the, I guess, traditional stuff that comes with all the other martial arts, and I get to kind of focus on the areas that are most violent and most effective for the environment that I was focused on working in. Because when you look at it, I'd probably say you look at any traditional martial art, it doesn't have a very good way of transitioning into urban operations environment when you start bringing guns into play. Krav Maga filled all of that. It answered so many questions for me. And that's one of the big reasons why when I had the opportunity, I did everything I could to bring the Chaplains Corps over to see you guys and help bridge the gaps for a lot of those individuals and understanding movement, of having that third party individual. How do you move them? How does all this start to come into play? How do we control individuals? And then how do we utilize our tools that we have on us to maximize our opportunities?
Yeah, that's definitely. We've had this talk too. This is, I've talked about traditional martial arts for a long time, and this is my, my base is Tang Soo Do and how much I loved it. You know what I mean? I trained hard even in traditional martial arts. I was always kind of if you ever read all my test papers, why are you wrestling? Why are you taking people to the ground? Why are you're too aggressive? And I listen, like I was mini Chappy, trust me, without the firearms experience. And I did a lot of this, and I looked at the weaknesses of traditional martial arts, especially in the self-defense aspect of things, and I was like, man, this sucks. And I really didn't want anything to do with Krav. I mean, I heard a lot about it, but it wasn't until I went and did a gun seminar. I've told you this story before, and those that are just first listening, it wasn't until I took a gun seminar in an 8-hour seminar, and you got guys with experience like me, and then you got guys inexperienced we left that place, and both gaps could, at least if a gun was pointed in your face, be able to defend yourself. And I was like, I was really taken by that, going, I've wasted all this time on all these black belts that I have that could never take a gun away from the face. Now, back in the 80s, it wasn't prevalent to be, guns in your face and that kind of warfare. Today's world, I'm telling my junior high and my high school kids when my kids were that age on how to deal with active shooters and how to keep yourself safe. I mean, these are things that I talk to my children about on the way to school. I mean, I can't just see that we're just weak all the time. It's just if you don't kind of adhere to the times, you're going to fail and you're going to fall backwards and you're going to stay stagnant. I guess it's a good relationship to all of our senators that are 70, 80 years old and doesn't even know how to use an email today, right? But they're running our country. That kind of stupid shit like that. But, for sure that, listening to that, and this is what I believe bridged the gap between traditional martial arts. And it wasn't that the techniques are a lot different outside of gun, knife, and stick, but, it's how you deliver. It's how your intent. For those that always hear me speak about a worthy opponent, this is something that you brought to the table when remember that time I was coming out there and I was kind of sick, but I was taking the SOCP that you were teaching. Mm-hmm. And then I was teaching gun on the second half, remember? And I wasn't feeling good that day. That's when I got those blood clots, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And so, but taking your course on the SOCP and you talking about, this is Joe, the one that talks about the worthy opponent, and who better than a battle-tested warrior that talks about a worthy opponent? Because when someone's trying to kill you, I guess that would gather as a worthy opponent. I don't know how worthy it was after you got done with them, but
definitely
that
motivates
mindset.
You.
Yes, but that mindset of we train for those that are better because somebody out there is training better than what we are, and how you can't be fair. And I speak often about being older like myself. Listen, I'm not interested in being in a dogfight. You know what I mean? I'm interested in ending things really quickly and being able to go home and, not deal with injuries. So, there's definitely a similarity there. So, I mean, those are all really good. As I'm listening to you speak and know that we are on the right path of getting people safe and having strong leadership in the process of doing it. I couldn't be more proud of the culture that we are building in this AKMF community, where we are, we take our techniques serious and they're battle tested. I mean, you can attest, correct? Do we not sim train and fire train our techniques to see? And listen, we do the same thing here. And I'm going to tell you something: gun from behind. If you do not do that technique right, you are getting shot. So if you are a teacher and you guys are teaching Krav Maga and you're teaching these gun stuff and you're not doing it for real to see if this really is redirecting and stuff like that, you are doing your students a disservice. Okay. And
absolutely,
because I don't care what anybody says, you get shot a couple times with one of those sim rounds, your technique gets really good really fast. Okay. Because you're just not taking it that much. You know what I mean? So, that was some really good feedback. So, I mean, I can't believe we're at 53 minutes already, but I want to talk about, so we hear this hardcore war charger, Joey, the Chappy, we call you. So everybody knows we call him Chappy because he was in the Chaplain's Corps, and that's just his nickname. That's his nickname. That's where it comes from. But, you also have a special needs daughter. So there's all this warrior side. You need to see the other side of the softy that he is when it comes to his daughter Jax, and just you take that same leadership that you have, that same mindset that you have, and I see you put it into your daughter. I mean, it's I'll let you talk about her a little bit in what you deal with on a daily. It's sometimes that's probably harder than war, I would imagine. Okay, because it's just there's nothing that you can do, especially when she's having seizures and stuff like that. So let's talk about Jax a little bit and how you deal with that.
So Jack is 13 now, and honestly, I'd say all the credit that for Jack's successes is Kelly, because one of the things Kelly and I talked about early on was, as far as how we see family, it's a father and a mother, and my job is to provide and protect. Her job is to nurture, and for her to do her job correctly means that she needs to be a stay-at-home mom, especially with a special needs child. So I've worked in different locations just because military does not pay bad at all. I mean, it's a good living, but when you move to West Point, that is the most expensive place I've ever lived in my life. And for me to go ahead and make ends meet up there, I was working extra jobs and working a lot of hours cutting trees just to make sure that Kelly could be home with Jacqueline. But early on, when Jacqueline was first born, we noticed that she was having seizures right at birth. And then she was put into the NICU for like 14 days, 10 or 14 days. After that, we ended up PCSing or moving permanent change of station from that point up to West Point right after, within a few weeks of her being born. So Kelly was not impressed at all with that timing with the military move and everything that was involved in that. New York was a huge blessing being up there at West Point because of the special needs community and resources up there. But one of the things Kelly noticed, with it being our first child, I didn't really know what to expect on anything. I had never really paid much attention to how long it should take a kid to walk or take a first step or anything along those lines. So Kelly started noticing some major deficiencies and really started to go after the resources while we were up there to go ahead and make it to where Jacqueline would start to perform. When Jacqueline was first born, we were told that she was going to be Are we still there, or did I lose you?
Yeah, you're still here, sir. Go ahead.
Hello? You still there, Mark?
I'm here. I'm here, sir.
I lost something.
I can hear you.
You still there, Mark?
Uh-oh. I'm here, sir. Can you see me? It's got to be on your end, chap. Mm-hmm. Chappy chap. Stand by. We'll get him.
Let's see. Okay, Mike. Everything here is working.
I can hear you, sir.
You there?
I'm here, Chappy. And Chappy's gone. We'll see if he comes back, guys. So let me tell you a little bit why we're waiting for Chap if he comes back online with me. And okay, I'll put him back on. But he does have a special needs daughter named Jack. She's super sweet, by the way. I mean, I love going to see her and stuff like that. But what I was trying to get at is watching a warrior like himself. Let me see. Here he comes back in. Let me see if I can add him to the stream. You back on, Chappy? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm back on.
Okay. So he's back, guys. So I was just talking off camera with him just about your daughter. So go ahead and finish up your story with her, sir.
Anyways, Kelly she was supposed to be deaf, dumb, and blind was the initial, thing the doctor had told us. So anything obviously beyond that point is just phenomenal. And, Jacqueline's surpassed all expectations at that point. She is very stubborn. I like to say that's from Kelly. But she's extremely stubborn.
Yeah, because you have none of that trait. Okay.
Not at all. I'm very easy to get along with.
All right. You're right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Anyway. Okay.
But as we bounced around, the special needs groups and everything that have been there, some of them have been really good. Some of them have been extremely poor. Especially Chatham County, Georgia. Their ability to go ahead and deal with a special needs program is piss poor, to say the least, with resources and how they structure stuff. So Kelly, a couple years ago, decided to go ahead, pull everybody out, and start homeschooling. We've seen just the benefits to it have far outweighed any any heartache on our end. But it really wasn't until we started doing the Special Kicks program, which was started by Carson Fortner, that we saw the biggest change in her. She went from somebody that did not like being touched at all, could not handle like her brother laying on top of her, holding her down. She would freak out. And she started jujitsu, which I was shocked by, stoked, but very shocked. And we started seeing just a huge change in her social skills and just her OT and PT was just leaps and bounds improving. And then shortly after that, we started having seizures again. And the seizures we were seeing, they never happened when I was around. It would always be on Kelly. Kelly would be somewhere. I'd be doing something stupid for Uncle Sam and be stuck in the field or somewhere. And then I would get a phone call saying that Jacqueline's having a grand mal seizure. And I'd try to rush home as quickly as I could. We've had some really great neighbors who've been able to watch the kids when the ambulance would arrive, and Kelly was able to go to the hospital and kind of take care of things. But for Kelly, I really haven't seen almost any of the issues because I'm always at work, or any of the seizures. I would see these little fainting spells here and there. But the bulk of all that burden's been left on Kelly the entire time. And she's done a phenomenal job kind of with the process of ensuring Jacqueline gets the right care and medication. At one point, when they changed the medication, she started having this major rash pop out on her. And at one point, they thought it might be that Steven Johnson syndrome, which is where you essentially start to burn your skin.
That's exactly what we thought John had too. They just looked at him for Verkus, same exact thing.
Yeah, and it's a rough thing to see. And then they changed her medication. Hers, fortunately, was a medication issue that she had an allergic reaction. So when they changed the medication, it definitely helped some. But she's been changing medications on and off the last couple of years as she hits puberty, hormone changes, and everything else, and she starts getting a little attitude of being a teenage girl. But at this point here, I think Kelly's got everything well figured out medication wise. I couldn't even tell you what meds she's on right now. I just know it's some liquid bottle thing that costs like $5,000. And Jacqueline's responding extremely well. I mean, she's happy, but it's definitely it takes a toll on the family as a whole when she's having those type of stressors, especially when mama's having all those stressors of watching her baby go ahead, collapse, fall down the stairs, because Jacqueline's fell down the stairs before with a seizure and just came tumbling to the bottom. That takes a big toll on the family. And military wise, most people I know that have special needs children in the military, I mean, it's hard enough being married in the military and deploying a bunch and always being gone. But when you start adding that additional stressor of a special needs child, it's almost unheard of that families stay together as long as we have. So it just kind of is a testament to, fortunately, Kelly is more stubborn than I am stupid. And she has stuck it out for now, coming up on 18 years. But
yeah, she's definitely a warrior, dude. Your wife is a she's definitely a warrior, because it's hard, man. When I've gotten to know Jax now, she's her and I are pretty tight when I come down there, you know what I mean? And
that's because
even
you don't
when
get
I've
to
seen
see
it,
the angry Jack. You just get to see happy Jack.
Yeah, that's right. She's happy around me, dude. She's not, I don't make her angry like yourself. I buy stuff from her. See, that's how she loves me, because I say, make me something and I'll buy it. And see, so I buy her love. You see what I'm saying? So, but yeah, it's hard on me too. I've seen it a couple times, even at the studio. I mean, I'm like, I'm like, man, how in the heck are you dealing with that every single time? You know what I mean? So it's been something to see, a seasoned warrior, and right when our kids are hurting and we can't do much, it's just that does take a toll. And we'll end with is I'm sure that the special needs that Carson has brought to the table has probably been life-changing. It's been life-changing for so many people. I mean, I don't really think, how Carson is. No, he doesn't really take the acclimates for himself on what that looks like, you know what I mean? And what it's so natural for him. They call him the autistic whisperer, you know what I mean? It's just so natural for him. And Matthew has that other, he's kind of has that same thing. It's so natural for them to be in the environment with them and to see the environment that he's able to have is phenomenal, to see at that school. And having a safe space for special needs to be able to come to a martial arts school. And you see kids all rally around it. I mean, come on, man. You see when Austin's doing his stuff like that, or Jax is out there getting her new stripe. The push for the special needs to be able to excel is by far one of the most awesome things to see, and I've always enjoyed. So I'm sure the martial arts school has meant the world to you guys just for her purposes only. You know what I mean? And
Carson's done a ton for us as a whole. I mean, everything from him. At the end of the day, the reason I'm here at Pool of Karate is Carson pursued me. I didn't pursue him. He started coming out and just befriending me as a whole and bringing me on board, getting me to start training. I fell in love with everything that the school had to offer, and it's hard to find a solid Christian man that is not a beta. So it was definitely a big draw to be right there. And then from there,
that's the biggest compliment you just gave Carson, that he's not a beta.
But from there, it just kind of flourished to a point now where I'm retired out of the military. I never in my wildest dreams imagined I'd be a martial arts instructor. I totally thought I'd be a cop and just be miserable.
Right.
But
trust me, today is not the day to wear the badge.
Not at all.
Okay.
But, yeah, and then now my wife works here. I mean, she helps out with the kids jiu-jitsu program, and this place has done just wonders for the family. The fact that we can both work and be around each other as much as possible, and try to make up for a lot of lost time with me always being gone.
Well, we're approaching 1:07. Here's how I want to end today. I want you to end with the same speech that you told when you just got retired. What was the rank that you retired at, by the way?
I retired as a Master Sergeant.
So we're going to end with exactly what you said on stage to end your last award.
Yeah.
Okay? And you know why I'm asking for it. Because
Yes,
first of all, it's all true as can be. And I still cannot believe one of the commanding officers came up and said, man, it was a little rough that you shouldn't have said that at an Army retirement on one of the – what was the award that you got? Because it's one of the most elite awards ever.
So that as a Master Sergeant, it's not normal to receive a Legion of Merit. And that is what I received as my retirement award, was a Legion of Merit. So I was very grateful. The individual that wrote that and pushed it from start to finish was Chaplain Bill Robinson, and I cannot thank him enough for that. But yeah, I was kind of shocked that one, they had us in civilian clothes receiving an award.
Right, so weird, dude, to me. I'm like, wait, what is going on?
Yeah,
so,
and then they weren't happy with how I spoke to the troops. And I guess what you wanted to hear was hard times make hard men make good times make weak men, and weak men make hard times. Don't be weak. Find that thing that drives you forward. And that was enough to go ahead and turn the stomachs of some leaders. was just kind of
Not me, dude. I was pumped, man. I was down there going, let's get some, right? And then for me to watch that, I'm like, Commander did not just come up and say something to him.
yeah.
And but what a true statement that is. I'll make sure that I write that. I'm not sure who the original person that talked about that. I mean, who's the original that has that? Do you know?
I don't know, sir. I heard about this years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We had a first sergeant named Sergeant Major H, or First Sergeant H, and he talked about that. He also talked about when the war first kicked off. He stood all the troops out in front and said, "If I was in charge, I'd go ahead and bomb Japan just to let the world know America never forgets." So,
yeah. Can you? Yeah, I'm sure he got grief, man. Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh boy. But yeah, what a great statement that was, dude. I'm looking forward, dude. I think I know John's still listening. I think we get John and yourself. We got a couple other high-end military guys, and we talk about leadership and how that how leadership portrays, I mean, leadership on the mat in the martial arts world, it's like anything else. The mat's such an equalizer, right? You're either a minnow or a shark, in the waters on any given day. And how you when situations come to you and how you adhere to them, or how you react to them, I guess is a better word, but it will reflect your leadership immensely. And those leaders that are under us now, even in schools, when we say something, we've lived something, you know what I mean? And,
yes, sir.
And we've experienced the repercussions of our actions. So when we say something, for all intended purpose, we may know what we're talking about. I don't know. Whether you take it or not, that's on you as a man or a woman. You know what I mean? Whether you're going to take the advice or not take the advice. And you may or may not agree with the advice, but your feelings don't really interfere with what reality is. You know what I mean? And
sure.
So I think that's the same thing on the mat, correct?
Absolutely.
The mat doesn't care how you feel. The mat doesn't care if you're hurt. The mat doesn't care what color you are. And the mat doesn't care if you had a bad day. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's just one of those things. And so, yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure being with you, Chappy. We thank you so much for your service to our country. People really don't realize even the small entrance into the world. It doesn't even do justice on the amount of time that we spent together and talking, and what you've done, what you've sacrificed for your family, having special needs. You have an awesome wife, by the way, and she's maybe we should have her on one time. It'd be good to hear a perspective from what a woman is going through when her husband's deployed and she's got to take on leadership at home when you're not there and take on a thing. She'd probably have some really good insight as far as that goes. You know what I mean?
Yes,
so,
sir.
All right. I appreciate everything, guys. Mr. Fortner, if you're out there listening, you got a good guy there. We appreciate that he's in our family. All right. We'll talk soon, guys. Have an awesome day there, Joe.
You too, sir.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, Chappy. We'll see you.
Bye.